and welcome to Conversations with Candace. I am your host, Candace Paul, and I am the author of best-selling novel Spiritual Warfare. So before we get into the podcast, make sure that you like and you subscribe to this channel. So I am here with Demetrius Perminter, and he taught himself Spanish. Demetrius, how long did it take you?
When you're learning a second language, you kind of use the terminology. You never say like, oh yeah, I learned the language, because you can, but it's kind of like it's an ongoing process. Well, when you're learning a second language, you are always learning that second language. So it takes about 6 years before you're comfortable and able to speak and converse casually, and it's a consistent effort.
Where would you say you are now in terms of your fluency?
I'm fluent. I find it very easy to talk to people from Mexico. I find it very easy to talk to people from Guatemala. Yet some other countries, like, I literally have to take a moment and let my ear adjust, because they replace R's with L's, or they place the y sound with the j sound, or they link words in different ways. So to say you're fluent is a very tricky thing to do. Advanced.
Okay, that's fair. So what was your interest? Why Spanish? Why did you select Spanish?
I'm somewhat obviously of Latin descent. I wouldn't say it's very obvious, but there are certain like hints. My bomb ass dance moves, both on the Latin dance floor and being black and Latino,
Okay.
like hip hop. So, and it was always a part of my culture. And when I was adopted from an Afro-Mexican family into an Afro-Puerto Rican family.
Oh.
But the story on both sides was very similar. When the woman that adopted me, she's just shy of 80 this year.
Oh, wow.
Her mother came over in the 1919, 1920, I think. Her name was Edna King. She came over from Puerto Rico to New York. Now, when you came over during that time period, if you were Afro-Latino, you had two problems. So you had the problem of being black in a racist and segregated country, and then you had the problem of being Latino. So they made the decision to not speak Spanish to their kids and so on and so forth. In fact, her family came from a different island. Her family before that, I think it was her mother's mother, came from the DR, looking for work, went to Puerto Rico, and then from the Dominican Republic to Puerto Rico, then to the United States. So that side of the family had certain things that, like, I always thought were black growing up, because I grew up in a community that was very, very white. So anything that was different, I just assumed was because we were black. And then come to find out, no, they come more from the islands, the mixture of the Afro-Caribbean people and the Spaniards, etc. And it was more distinct or more related to that. And then when I found out for sure that I was Afro-Mexican, and like my mother's name is Ortega, like my biological mother, it was like, well, if you're going to learn any language and you have and you want to reconnect to where you come from, and I still need to do a DNA test to figure out where my African ancestry comes from, it's a good idea to start with Spanish, because that's your connection back to, on either side, whether I'm thinking of my biological family or my adoptive family, that's a way to reconnect us with part of our history that was kind of taken from us. Because when we came, on my biological family, it was the same thing. My grandfather came to the country. He didn't want his kids to be discriminated against, so he refused to teach them Spanish.
And now we see that was an obvious disservice to children who are learning, because what, in your opinion, are the benefits of being multilinguistic or being able to speak more than one language?
Right now, the benefit is about $25 an hour, because I'm a Spanish teacher and I make that.
Oh, yes. And that is awesome. I mean, I think people should know this, the fact that you are advanced in Spanish and now that you're able to teach it, that's a huge accomplishment.
It's still, like, rocky sometimes. Sometimes, like, your mind goes so quickly and you just can't, your mouth just can't keep up with what you want to say. But more often than not, I get, where am I from, instead of where did you learn? It's a subtle but big difference. Where are you from means you speak Spanish, but you don't look like what I think of a Spanish speaker, which is like, or I don't know, you kind of do, but I don't know what country. I can tell that you didn't grow up speaking this. So that the subtle distinction was actually like kind of super fun for me when it happened, where people started more asking where I was from and less how did I learn.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of what you want to do, how do you want to use this new language in order to help propel you in your future endeavors?
I have so many desires, and I'm hoping that if I live the average human lifespan in a first world country of 79, I'll get a chance to like dabble in all of them. In the short term, the next 5 years, I plan on opening a travel business in Colombia. And ironically, that's where or appropriately, I should say, that's where my half sister's family is from, and she's, Colombian as well, Afro-Colombian. So, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
it seems like no matter where my family was, they were always like in the radius or in the what's it called?
like the sphere.
The sphere of being Latino. And I'm going down to Colombia to start a travel business so that people can see the sights. Like we have this luxury travel experience that I feel is a little played out. It lacks adventure. It lacks cultural awareness. It lacks so much, and there's so much these countries have to offer. And for instance, in Colombia, there's an entire church underground in a salt mine, and it's huge. It's think like somewhere in between Luray Caverns and like the National Basilica.
Oh,
Like
wow.
they had a baby, and out came this strange underground church.
You also are bilingual. You're from America. You're going to be there. So you can literally take people there and show them the full extent of everything, and they'll feel comfortable. So
That's
I
what
think that that's good.
like that's what I want because like I had one of my friend's moms, she's Mexican, and as soon as she found out that I was Mexican, especially as soon as she found out where my Mexican ancestry came from, which was the same location as hers, she shoved Mexican culture and stuff down my throat as much as possible, whatever possible. But she used to brag to me about her travels, and some of them were interesting, but a lot of times she was telling me these like 5-star hotels that she stayed at. And I was like, you didn't see the country. I mean, the interior decorations at like the Marriott down the street from you and the one in like Istanbul is going to be, if there's one, I don't know, but they're going to be the same. And you miss out because, especially since she's fluent and speaks 2 languages, like if you go to another country and you can blend in with the populace and you can speak the language, then you absolutely should get out and like see what they have to offer, absorb more than just like luxury. Because I mean, are you really gonna be able to like lay in your deathbed and think of like all the wonderful mojitos you had on a beach? I mean, maybe
Yeah, because you're missing the authentic experience. Exactly. I know what you mean.
on the same question, another thing I want to do is music. Music is so much more. I'm not gonna say easy. There are a lot more acceptable sounds and acceptable language in Latin music. I don't mean like foul language. I just mean like if you listen to some of the songs, like if you try to translate, excuse me, to English, they become laughable. Like suavemente, besame, que quiero sentir tus labios. Like the translation of that is like kiss me softly. It's like it doesn't fit. It's super funny,
And the
but
way that you sang that right now didn't help. So yeah,
I mean I sang it how I felt it.
that's
So
funny.
I definitely want to do a little music because I feel like I get away with saying or express myself in different ways that aren't necessarily like it won't hit your ear in a foreign or strange way in Spanish, the same way trying to say the same things in English would.
So that's great. So let's transition a bit into kind of the technical part of learning Spanish. So what did you do? What was your daily routine in learning Spanish?
Everything. Honestly, it's still an ongoing process. So even now, like, I've got workbooks in my bag that I do the same way you would, like, you see people on the bus doing a Sudoku, which has, like, no real-life application at all,
Yeah.
sending off Alzheimer's. Like, I feel like I whip out a workbook from Practice Makes Perfect, pick a level. Most of the stuff I don't really have to think about to do anymore, but it just, like, it just
It
keeps,
helps you.
yeah,
It
it
helps
keeps
you
the
stay sharp.
stay sharp, exactly. But if you really want to learn, you have to accept that it's not going to be a easy process. It's not going to be a 60-day, 100-day. Oh, I'll just spend $400 on Rosetta Stone, and like I'll have this in a year. No, it's going to be a 5, 6, possibly longer. Because even for me, and I'm still learning every day and becoming more comfortable speaking especially in large groups. It might be 8 years before I'm like, sure, yeah, no matter who you put me in front of, I've got this. Like, also Spanish is, I forgot where I saw this, but behind Japanese is the second fastest language.
Interesting.
So I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I have to look it up again and double check. But it is a very fast-paced language. So the process goes from learning your base 2,000 words, however that happens, learning your present tense conjugations, your preterite, your irregular, and then you just keep moving forward in your different verb tenses until you can switch subjects and tenses, learning your object pronouns. For example, it is a common object pronoun. Your indirect object pronoun. So what's doing the action, and then what's receiving the action with your indirect object pronoun. I mean, there's a path, and I'm getting too into the grammar, into the weeds, but there's a path where you progress and you start to figure out what you don't know. That's the best part.
Gotcha.
Once you get to the point, you'll realize, oh, I don't know how to express this sentiment. And I consistently run into this problem with talking with people. Now I know what I have to look up. You don't know what you don't know, and that's why you plateau for a while. You hit an uphill, and then you start like knocking out the things you don't know. And the more you start speaking with people, the more you realize, oh, this is what I don't know. Like there's 4 common forms of to become in Spanish. So like, regarding if it's a emotional state, a more permanent state, if it's an accomplishment, or if it's a what's it called? A change in an inanimate object.
Okay.
In English, it's used to become or to get. In Spanish, you have 4 different ways to say it, and each one has a context in which you have to use it correctly. Once you start getting it wrong enough times and start seeing a pattern where, like, I really struggle with that, you know what to look up. And failure is your best friend. Messing up as often as possible and getting it corrected and finding out your holes and your weaknesses is in learning anything. Like,
don't be afraid of failure. Exactly.
Fail forward. It's going to be your best friend, and everything's going to you're going to be so much better for getting it wrong than for you avoiding it.
That's really good advice. And so let me ask you this. So I've heard a few people say when you're learning a language, you kind of want to start thinking in that language. Do you find yourself doing that, or what do you think about that?
Yes. At first, it's really difficult. And the reason why they tell you to think in that language is because the grammar, the way you structure sentences is a little bit different, and the way we express certain sensations or ideas is different. So, for example, in English, we'd say, I'm hungry. You are not the concept of hunger, but we all understand what it means.
Yes.
In Spanish, you say, tengo hambre, which means I have hunger.
I have hunger, exactly. Yeah.
It makes more sense, to be honest, because it's something that you possess. It's not physical, but again, in a way, both languages fall short from actually expressing the idea, but we understand it. When you are constantly translating your thoughts from English to Spanish, then you'll end up saying stuff like soy hambre or estoy hambre. And it's like, you can't be hunger. You'll say stuff like that, which is wrong, and they'll become habits.
Gotcha.
So if you can think in Spanish, you get closer to thinking in Spanish, the better off you are. I know there's a couple of or for example, saying like it doesn't matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes you leave one language and you continue using the grammar for another. I was talking to one of my coworkers, and then someone asked me something in English, and I told them it gives me the same.
Okay, and that's something that you would typically say in Spanish.
Yeah, you'd say me da igual, which means it gives me the same. It doesn't really matter to me. Do whatever you like. It's cool. Me da igual. And like, I turned to someone and said it gives me the same, and I realized like my brain is still like using Spanish grammar to speak English, and that's why things sound funny. Like you'll hear people like not to like disparage non-native English speakers. Every time you've heard, whether it be an Indian immigrant, a Spanish immigrant, a Asian immigrant, or any secondary language speaker, when you understand what they're saying, but it just sounds really bad and hard on the ear, it's because they're taking their language, translating it to yours, and then hoping for the best. You
Gotcha.
sound just as awful when you speak Spanish using English grammar and then talking back to them.
So
And
it's,
that's okay.
and I
But
think,
yeah,
and I'm glad that you brought that up because it's about understanding people. And sometimes, you have to take time. When you're learning a language, you have to be patient with someone, and you would hope that they'd be patient with you too. So let me ask you this. In
okay.
terms of these software, like Duolingo and Rosetta Stone and things like that, what do you think the advantages are and the disadvantages are?
Okay, so I can only speak on the softwares that I've used.
Okay.
I've been very fortunate in the last couple of years in a way because every job that I've had in the last about 3 years has been based off a skill set that I taught myself. And then someone's like, all right, I'll give you a shot. So whether it be becoming a dance instructor or teaching Spanish or possibly parkour coming up,
Okay.
but knowing where to go for the resources is a huge help and will cut down on your learning time. So if anybody's trying to learn, Duolingo, I didn't find very useful. A lot of people love it. I felt it was lacking a lot of it was so basic as far as the base level what you need. It wouldn't be helpful to anyone who studied beyond a year, and even a year would be pushing it. Rosetta Stone, I honestly don't know. I didn't have 400. I've been poor most of my life. I did not have 400 to invest in a software that.
Gotcha. Okay.
However, I will recommend a software, and if you have time to get it, um, it's called Fluencia. It's a web-based software, so you can log in anywhere. It runs on Mac, Windows. It runs to a web browser, so you don't have to worry about operating systems. Fluencia, I think their price was last I checked was $120, or they have a monthly payment arrangement, but it's about $100, and it gives you a year's worth of access. And I'll say that with that software, if you actually are able to absorb what they're teaching you, you'll actually get about 75% of the language. They don't go over compound verb tenses with aber, which was annoying, and they don't go over they call it the past subjunctive. I forgot the word for it, but it's like the era endings where it's something that would have happened or it's expressing a hypothetical from the past perspective.
Okay.
Anyways, it's super technical. They don't go over it, and that's like what I felt the software is missing. But overall, for the price, the accessibility, I
It's
think
worth
Fluency
it.
is a great plus. So I would say get the workbooks from Practice Makes Perfect in combination with Fluencia, and then after that, you're gonna have to be your own advocate. But I think by then you'll know what you don't know, and I mean by every 2 months you should finish one workbook practice from the Practice Makes Perfect series. Start at your level, don't jump ahead. Beginning, all your verbs, etc. These workbooks take time. 2 months might be a little quick.
Hmm.
They will teach you that, and pretty soon you'll find that you're able to read and write and understand, listen and watch telenovelas, Spanish television programs. absorb much Spanish media. Watch Club de Cuervos with subtitles on in Spanish. All your favorite kids movies. By now, I'm not saying you should pirate them, but if you have the DVDs, they have them. You can just switch the language on any of the animated movies, and they have it in Spanish. The language, watch it with the subtitles. You already know the story. You're not going to get lost, but what's going to happen is you're going to start associating certain phrases with American phrases and understand them within context. That's how a baby learns. There's no reason why you won't be able to absorb a lot more of the language. But take every opportunity to sharpen that skill set.
This was very great advice. I am so glad you had an opportunity to join us. I'm very happy about that. So how can people get in contact with you? What if I want one-on-one instruction? Do we have a way of getting in contact with you?
Yeah, feel free to shoot me a text. I know that's like crazy. Everybody's like, don't put your number on social media. You'll get, this type of person or that type of person. It's like, I need that. I rode the metro for 2 years. I'm not afraid of nothing.
And we'll make sure to put your information in the links as well. But if you just want to shout it out, you can go ahead.
You can hit me up via text or WhatsApp at 202-253-5761. And you can look me up on Facebook, Demetrius Perminter. There's nothing special about that. It's just my first and my last name.
I will.
Demetrius Perminter at like Fluffy Kitty 36, the real one official page. Like, no.
He's hilarious. He'll be a good person just to talk to in general. So thank you so much, Demetrius, for being on the show. And everyone, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this with a friend who's interested in learning Spanish. Until next time, thank you. And you can always learn from a conversation.